Thursday, friends. Now, this is, again, it's another delayed Wellness Tips for You Wednesday, but it had to happen. My house was being viewed and I had to get certain things done and tidied up, and it wasn't until I started tidying up that I realised quite what a mess my house was in. So, I'm all zen. I'm decluttered. Woohoo! Today, I am going to be talking about the relationship between bacteria in our bellies and our brain health, and in fact our health overall, because there is a hugely impactful relationship about depending upon how the microbiome in our intestines is working, and as how we feel on a mental level, emotional level, but also what's going on inside of our bodies. There is more. I mean, this is something I've sort of started to explore a while ago. It's absolutely fascinating, and the more I learn, the more I just think I've got to talk about this again, because I've been listening to some really in-depth sort of scientific reports, and or reading in-depth scientific reports, and it is just astounding. So today I'm also going to share a few stories with you of tests that have been used out there that are really pointing to some very positive news. In order, it sort of puts us back in the driving seat. I think, I see so many people with things like ulcerative colitis. I've got friends with IBS, people who have Crohn's disease, people who are fighting obesity and diabetes. And it's not just a fact that you have a tendency to perhaps overeat certain food groups. When the bacteria in our gut is off, it then affects our hormones and our intake of, how we assimilate various nutrients. So, which can actually set us off on a chain reaction for diabetes or to become obese. So, I think it's easy to point the finger. However, it's also really important to realise that there are things that you can do which are going to help you possibly even overturn some of the long-term chronic issues you've had, ranging from things like obviously the ulcerative colitis and the sort of Crohn's and the sort of digestive issues, but things like heart disease, diabetes, rheumatoid arthritis, sort of inflammatory responses that we have in our bodies. The evidence out there is pointing to the fact there is so much that we individually can do. So I just want to sort of share a few things with you that I've found absolutely fascinating, which you might not be aware of already. So I thought if I share those with you today, it'll give you hopefully a concise idea of how you can work towards either improving your emotional, your physical health, or even both, because it is all tied or predominantly tied to in our gut health. And our gut health is so influenced by the bacteria that we have in our bodies, within our intestines. So, just sort of out of interest, we are made up of 90% bacteria. Only 10% of our cells are what you'd call standard human cells. The rest of it is all bacteria. We are walking bacterial mounds, whatever you want to call it, bacterial heaps. Now, there's some conflicting evidence about whether we are completely sterile while we're in the womb. There is evidence pointing to the fact that we do get some bacteria from our mothers while we're in the womb, but predominantly as you pass through the birth canal, or whether you're delivered by C-section, we're all then covered in the majority of the bacteria that creates a sort of microbiome within our body. There are a lot of studies out there. If you can go for the natural birth process, you are going to benefit your baby so much, because the baby gets the natural bacteria from the mother, which is obviously how nature intended. Since the rise of elective C-sections, we've seen like a 25% increase in food allergies, eczema, asthma, these sorts of sort of inflammatory responses. And you're also, when your baby gets delivered by people either in the hospital or whoever's delivering through C-section, your baby is predominantly getting bacteria from those people. And obviously the environment that we're born in, thank you for the heart, hey Stu, hey Sylvie, the environment that we're born in also plays a really key role. Now, I had both of my babies at home and I birthed them naturally. I know people, in fact, I came up against quite a bit of, kickback when I decided to have my first at home, purely because we now see childbirth as a medical procedure. I see childbirth as it's a natural procedure. Yes, if something goes wrong, we weren't too far from a hospital and everyone was under absolute strict instructions. Baby survives, I do not. There was absolutely no way I would risk the life of my baby. And that was the absolute strict instruction that if anything did go wrong, I would, remove me from the equation, save my baby. Thankfully, everything was fine. And since I had both of mine at home, thank goodness I did, because I had incredibly long childbirths or labours. And you obviously, when you give birth in that environment, your baby picks up the bacteria from either your home or the hospital. Well, we all know that MRSA is rife in hospitals these days. In the States, it actually kills more people than who die from AIDS. So that's, for me, I just thought that's a scary statistic. Also at home, hopefully, you're relatively healthy at home. In hospital, that's where ill people go. Also, everything is supposed to be kept pretty sterile. So, they're not, the babies aren't getting the natural amount of sort of natural healthy bacteria than they probably would do if they were born vaginally and ideally at home. So obviously you've got to weigh up the risks. If you are at high risk pregnancy, of course you're going to have an elective cesarean. This isn't against cesareans. This is all about, though, if you're able to choose a natural delivery method, your baby is going to benefit. Again, breast milk is a huge source of healthy bacteria for the baby. Colostrum, the first milk that comes out, is incredibly important for the baby's microbiome, how their gut takes root, really, how the microbiome starts to develop within the gut. Again, I know quite a lot of mums can't breastfeed. This isn't about saying you've got to breastfeed, but if you have that opportunity to, then do. There's a lot of research out there, and I know formula says they have added probiotics in it to help the baby's gut biome get healthy. It's not the same as breast milk, though, and there are so many research papers out there showing that if you can have a vaginally delivered baby at home and you can breastfeed it, you're setting it up for the best chance in life. However, we know that a lot of people do have C-sections. However, we also know there's a huge rise in food allergies, digestive issues, eczema, asthma. This isn't about pointing the finger. This is just about explaining how one of the major ways as we come into the world of microbiome gets implanted with bacteria. Also, our microbiome is so large, it weighs about 3 pounds, which is about the same size of our brain. It's also known as its own organ, and it consists of, I don't know how many, billions, trillions of cells. Bearing in mind, again, just a reminder, we are 90% bacterial cells, only 10% human cells. So it's its own living, breathing organ and has an incredible influence on how our bodies respond to how we obviously digest food, how we produce certain vitamins and some hormones, how we regulate our cholesterol levels, how we regulate our blood sugar levels, how we digest our food, obviously, but it's also really important to understand that 90% of serotonin, which is one of our feel-good hormones, gets produced in the gut, not in the brain. So when you are put on antidepressants, that is targeting, obviously, the brain. Antidepressants, there's a type that try and make sure that the serotonin that your body does release stays in your body for longer, which obviously helps you to feel better and a bit more at ease and happier with life. But 90% of our serotonin is created in our gut. So I think science is going to change hopefully soon, and the doctors are going to spend more time learning about the intricacies of nutrition and how it affects our mental health. I know standard GPs, it's not their fault, they just don't learn about nutrition in any great detail when they are learning to become doctors. Hopefully that will change with time, and I think as time goes on, we're becoming much more aware of the relationship between our gut health and our mental health. Dopamine is another of our sort of feel-good hormones. It helps, or neurotransmitters. It helps us. It's sort of the reward system. So, but again, it's something that motivates us and makes us feel better about ourselves. 50% of dopamine is created within our gut. So, that's incredibly important to understand, that those hormones that we traditionally consider when we're talking about depression and anxiety and stress and panic attacks, they're created in the gut predominantly, not in the brain. So it would kind of make sense that if we are struggling with things like depression and anxiety and panic attacks, have sleep problems, because serotonin is the precursor to melatonin. So we have to have a certain amount of serotonin in our bodies in order to create melatonin, which helps us go to sleep well. I don't want to make this too sciencey, but just to help you understand that, there is a very, very strong, thank you, Sylvie, a strong correlation between our happy hormones and how well we sleep. And it all has an impact on, obviously, then our food choices, our mood, because if we're sleep deprived, we tend to reach for the not quite so healthy foods. Obviously, I don't know about you, if I'm really, really tired, I can get seriously cranky, and I definitely don't work to sort of, my maximum ability. So sleep deprivation is a byproduct of bad nutrition, because we are not, our gut isn't producing the right amount of serotonin, because our microbiome may not have the sort of variety of bacteria that it requires in order to, live a very healthy life. And it's really important that we have a good variety of bacteria in our bodies. It's a little bit like a rainforest. Say like it's the Amazon rainforest inside of your bodies. The more variety of species that you have there, the better. And there are good bacteria and there are negative bacteria. But if you live a fairly healthy life, if you feed your body with the right kind of stuff, and I'll go into that in a little while, you are going to be promoting healthy flora within your gut. So it's really important to remember that, or just to understand how vital gut health is to our overall health. And also the fact that it's really important that we have those healthy bacteria, not a predominance of unhealthy bacteria. We tend to have more unhealthy bacteria when we eat a lot of processed foods, when we eat a lot of refined sugars, if we smoke, if we drink a lot of alcohol. Those have a negative knock-on effect to our gut health. So that's also worth really knowing. It's also, people say that our digestive system has got its own brain. It's called the enteric nervous system. Now, the vagus nerve, which is something when you do deep breathing exercises, it sort of stimulates the vagus nerve, helps us to relax. That connects the brain to our digestive system. In people who are actually brain dead, the digestive system, eventually it will stop, but the digestive system will continue to work on its own without any feedback from the brain. On tests, when the vagus nerve has been completely severed, so remember, the vagus nerve connects the brain to the digestive system. The digestive system still continues to work, which suggests, again, it has got its own nervous system. It's full of, it's full. I can't remember this. There are so many what's it called? I'm having a blank. Nerve cells in the digestive system. Not quite as many as there are in the brain, neurons, but there are in the digestive system. So there are loads and loads in the digestive system too. So just be aware of the fact that it is its own little body of responses and triggers and hormones and vitamins and things that can do you a lot of good or can cheat you out of full health. But you've got to kind of treat it well in order for it to pay you back with optimal health. So there are three things that really affect the bacteria in our gut. The first one I've already gone over. It's how we are born. The second one is antibiotics. Antibiotics, literally, obviously in some cases we need antibiotics because we might have a life-threatening illness and we need antibiotics to try and get rid of that in order to help save our lives. But cleaning products used at home can really affect our health too. Yes, they can, Sylvie. Absolutely, they can. I try and use a sort of I use a few probably toxic products, but I never use them in spray form, and I always use gloves when I'm using them. But I try and be as health conscious as I can when I'm cleaning at home as well. It's absolutely true that cleaning products can affect our gut health 100%. And so antibiotics, now it's not just the ones that we're taking. The majority of antibiotics are used in agriculture with the cattle and things that, you know, obviously used for either meat or for milk, etc. Because they are given it antibiotics when they poo and wee. It can go into the water supply. It can go onto the crops that we're eating. And we end up filling ourselves with antibiotics unbeknownst to us. So, you know, we've got more bugs that are becoming antibiotic resistant. But it's quite interesting. There was a program on in the UK a little while ago, and there's these two doctors, they're brothers, they're great. I really like watching them. And they did this, they went into GP surgeries, and obviously GPs are, you know, they're tight on time. I don't know, they have 3 or 5 minutes per person to see. So they want to sort of get them in and out as fast as possible. And they were encouraging these GPs to not hand out antibiotics because a virus will not respond to an antibiotic. Somebody goes in with a cold or the flu or a cough, unless it's become bacterial, antibiotics will not help with viruses. It has to be a bacterial infection for an antibiotic to actually work. But people would not get out of the surgery unless they'd been given an antibiotic, even though they had a virus, even though the doctors were trying to tell them antibiotics will not fix a cold. You have to say, in that case, why are doctors giving them out? We need to inform people more strongly, maybe spend a bit more time, so that we're not giving out so many antibiotics. I mean, it must be a massive cost to the health service to begin with. I just think we're in such a crazy situation at the moment with people's understanding of the health, and also doctors handing out so many antibiotics. I think it's getting better, but it still happens. And antibiotics will really negatively affect your gut flora. But so, you know, if you've had to have a course of antibiotics, if it is a reason, if you've got something that antibiotics will help to fix, do your antibiotics, get better, and then make sure you take something like a multidofilus, which is it's like a little capsule with lots and lots of healthy bacteria in it. Have one of those or 2 of those a day, see what it says on the pack. That will help to make your gut biome healthy again. It'll give you the healthy bacteria, the probiotics that you need in order to have optimal health. So I mean, also if you eat a lot of fresh vegetables and fruit and stuff like that, those are also going to help. Those will feed the healthy bacteria that you've got. But you do need to make sure, once you've had a course of antibiotics, that you make sure you have probiotics in order to get your gut flora working well again, and, you know, obviously optimal emotional and physical health. The other way we get healthy bacteria in our gut is food, healthy food. So fruits, vegetables, things like that, things that are fairly high in fibre. It's amazing how much good you can do yourself by eating a range of. It's one of the reasons we say eat your five vegetables a day, is because they contain prebiotics, which are a sort of range of natural sugars and fibre that feed the healthy bacteria in your body. So it's really important that you've got the prebiotics feed the probiotics. The probiotics are the healthy bacteria living in your gut. The prebiotics are what feed them, and fruits and vegetables have a lot of the prebiotics. Probiotics, for instance, are things like sauerkraut, fermented foods, kefir, tempeh, kombucha, chicory root. is a good one. I'm just trying to think of the other ones off the top of my head. I've got these for the end of my prebiotic. I'm going to go through these at the end because otherwise I'm going to go off course, and I know I have a habit of rambling, so I just want to make sure I stay on this. But I will go through the sort of ideal pre and probiotics that you can eat for optimal health. Now I just want to tell you a few stories. Now these are quite interesting. They do revolve around mice, unfortunately. But one thing that really stood out for me, and I just thought this absolutely incredible, a mouse was raised in a sterile environment, and not sort of given. So basically, it hadn't got healthy bacteria in its gut. Then it was given healthy bacteria, and when it was given healthy bacteria, it had been before the healthy bacteria, it had been showing signs of some autism related signs, so excessive grooming and excessive vocalization. Once it'd been given this healthy bacterial transplant, its excessive grooming and excessive vocalization it went back into being a happy, normal, flourishing mouse. Again, now there's another, which I thought was incredible, because the implications for autism, there is so many people are not entirely sure what causes autism, but possibly it's got roots in the healthy bacteria within our gut. There's still a lot of research going into that, but it's got to start somewhere. And for this mouse to essentially reverse its autism related problems, issues, behaviors, I just think there is so much power in that story. Same with Parkinson's disease. There's a lot of research tying our gut health also to Parkinson's disease and overcoming the symptoms of Parkinson's disease. There's another story. There were two twin girls, and one of them was obese and one of them was thin. And they took the bacteria, the gut bacteria, some of the bacteria. They took a sample of the gut bacteria from the obese twin and a sample of the gut bacteria from the thin twin, and put them into mice as well. The mouse that received the obese sample from the obese twin became obese. The mouse that received the sample from the twin who was slim stayed slim. There is so much evidence pointing to how our gut flora allow our bodies to either produce various sort of satiety hormones. For instance, our hormone that makes us feel full and our hormone that makes us feel hungry is affected by the bacteria in our guts. And you imagine if your gut is telling you all the time that you're hungry and that you've got a craving for something sweet, it's bloody hard to sort of resist that continuously. Particularly if you know in your brain that you shouldn't have it, but there's something in your body saying, I need it, I need it, I need it. What if that's your gut bacteria? What if that gut bacteria can be made healthier so that you don't have those cravings? So, those mice, then they don't watch the various adverts on television trying to sell them sweet things. But there was obviously something from the obese twin in her gut flora that made that mouse then decide it needed to eat certain things that would make it become obese. And also certain hormones, for instance, like when we have stress, it really affects our gut health. Long-term stress has got such a negative impact and negative implication for our gut health. That releases obviously adrenaline into our bodies, but that then also releases glucagon, which prevents us into our gut, which prevents us from absorbing various nutrients. So, you may have eaten, but if you're under stress, you've got all this glucagon in your body, which also creates a massive preponderance of not so healthy bacteria. So you've got the double whammy of not uptaking the nutrients, and you've got all these unhealthy bacteria growing like mad in your gut. It's no surprise that so many of us have got leaky gut, Crohn's, ulcerative colitis, IBS, it's related to our gut flora. And I think a lot of people they're still in the situation where they think, no, I'd rather have a pill, or I'd rather take this antacid. You know, if you watch television, there are so many adverts on there all about antacids, you know, digestive health, people who are having acid reflux, heartburn, that sort of stuff. It's a massive, massive problem, but it can be overcome by just making a few lifestyle changes. And if you're sort of hitting up against a brick wall all the time, the more sort of, I suppose, extreme way of dealing with this, and you might think this is pretty revolting, but it has the proof, the evidence that it works is absolutely astounding, is a fecal transplant. Now that sounds pretty revolting. The way it's done at the moment is generally through a tube through your nose down into your gut. But if you're facing something like Crohn's or ulcerative colitis, that can kill you. So, you know, better to have a fecal transplant, which is showing so many signs of success out there at the moment with people with ulcerative colitis, with Crohn's, facing diabetes. They cannot control their blood sugars, and it's having huge positive implications. It's also been shown that you have to be very choosy about your transplant, or about your donor. There was a lady who wanted to use the fecal transplant from her daughter. You know, obviously, I think we'd rather keep it in the family. And the daughter, after giving a fecal transplant, sort of obviously a stool sample that was taken from her, is then through the nose into the mum. Well, a few months later, this daughter became obese, having been a little bit overweight when she gave the stool sample. And the mum, after having received the fecal transplant, herself became obese, grossly obese. And the only reason they can put that down to the fact is that because the bacteria that the mum received from the daughter had got the imbalance in it for the mum to then not process foods properly and have a desire for sweeter things and, you know, probably not quite so healthy things. And this lady became obese. So it's very important that when somebody is considering a fecal transplant, that the donor is vetted really well, so that there is no chance of having that problem of obesity in the future. But I think that's something people are becoming more aware of. This has been going on. I mean, the Chinese have been eating like a yellow soup for years, because they thought it was incredibly good for their health. It is. And that yellow soup happens to be fecal transplant. So I think if I were facing something like ulcerative colitis or Crohn's, give it to me. If the donor is a good donor and the chances of me completely resolving my digestive issues are going to happen because of this fecal transplant, absolutely, 100%. But there is so much overwhelming evidence. If you're one of those people who struggles with ulcerative colitis or Crohn's, I mean, it's just so debilitating. Google fecal transplant. There is so much information and research out there, and the results are literally mind-blowing for success. Absolutely mind-blowing. And I know there's a lot of information out there also about you can help reverse ulcerative colitis or Crohn's through lifestyle changes. The research papers that I've read for this, it would appear that some people kind of get stuck. Their bacteria, they just cannot get the right level, the right balance of healthy bacteria in their gut biome. The fecal transplant helps to do that. So, you know, ignore the fact that it comes from somebody else's stool sample. If it's going to help fix your gut, which is obviously going to help fix or improve your mental health, it's going to help you on so many different levels. It's definitely worth doing. I would do it any day. Other things that you can also do to support your gut health are eat pre and probiotics. So as I mentioned earlier, prebiotics are things like You know, you want your vegetables because they're going to help feed the healthy bacteria, the probiotics in your bodies. And those are things like chicory root, dandelion greens, onions, bananas. Trying to think of the other ones off the top of my head. What was it? Those yacon root, oatmeal, artichokes, apples, asparagus. I knew there was another A. So those are really good prebiotics. So those help to feed the healthy bacteria, which are the probiotics. And your probiotics are things like your kefir, your sauerkraut, your kombucha, live yogurts. Make sure when you're having something that says it's got bacteria, healthy live bacteria in it, that it's not full of sugar. Don't go for a flavoured one. There are certain products out there that say they're really healthy. Check the sugar levels in them first, because if they're very, very high in sugar, they may have live bacteria, but the amount of sugar in them is just, you might as well just leave them on the shelf. And actually a lot of those things are really, really expensive as well. Make sure you have something like some people say Bacillus coagulans. I say Bacillus coagulans. That is a probiotic which will actually survive the trip through the gastric juices. The majority of probiotics, are healthy bacteria, live in the colon, so the large intestine. So it's already gone through our stomach, it's gone through our small intestine, and it's in our large intestine where you need the healthy bacteria to do its job. So make sure you're getting a bacteria that will survive that passage, because there's a lot of stuff out there that won't. And I think that's about it, really. I think I've done everything, that I've sort of covered everything I wanted to chat about. So it's just becoming aware that when we start to look after our microbiome, which is this 3 pounds of organ within our cells, which accounts for 90% of the bacteria or the cells of our body. Again, just as a reminder, 90% of us is bacteria, only 10% of us is human cells. Bacteria have a massive effect on our bodies. Our skin is also covered in bacteria, but the majority of it lives within our microbiome, within our gut. So if you feed your bacteria with the right stuff, you're going to notice a big difference in your energy levels, your gut health, your skin, your breath, how you digest food, how you uptake nutrients, how you produce your happy hormones, how you sleep. So it does have a massive impact. And again, the 3 things that really will have the biggest impact on your healthy bacteria are how you're born and breast milk, sort of the birthing process. If you take a lot of antibiotics, and the types of food that you're eating. Those are the 3 key things which are going to have a big, big impact on your gut biome, the health of your gut biome. So, bisous Mani, je joue en Belgique, recherche une relation sérieuse, ok, merci pour... Non, merci, pas en ce moment. I don't want a relationship, thank you. So, all the relationship that I want is with my healthy gut bacteria. Once I have a happy flora, I'm a happy girl. I don't need other men from Belgium. Thank you, Pierre, Jean. So you guys, I hope that's helped. I hope it's been just informative. I just really want you to help you guys to understand the importance of keeping a happy mental state and the link that has to our gut health is absolutely crucial. So if you've got any questions, let me know. Either send me a private message or leave me a comment underneath this. And if you've got anything that you'd like me to cover in future episodes, again, send me a private message or leave me a comment. And just work on looking after your gut biome. And I think you'll notice a massive, massive difference in your energy levels, how you sleep, how you feel, your motivation for life, your energy for life, give you a bit of va-va-voom. And if you've really, if you're at the far end and you're struggling with things like colitis and Crohn's disease, start finding out, ask your GP about, or whoever your consultant is, about fecal transplants. Or if not, get on Google. and just do some research, because it's astounding how effective they are. Hope that's helped, and I will catch you soon.